May this smoke remind you that your independence is as the wind. It's Vlogaday 717.
It's up here on the left somewhere. Yeah. Oh, it could be. We're going to Wild in the Moon. If you were keeping track of my smoothie experiences when we were in Biarritz, had some delicious ones there with the Bali bowls, and they suggested we go here, which I'd never heard of, but apparently everybody knows about except for me. So I'm gonna give Wild in the Moon a chance, and then I'll talk about, it's Tuesday, so Friday, Wednesday, talk about index cards next, which sounds really exciting, I know. It's a really good sign. And today was actually Rachel's last day, so treated her to some good, delicious, healthy food. Now she's taking me to Mercy, whatever that is.
Mercy.
Where are we going?
Well, it is Mercy.
But Merci. Thank you. So we're going to a store and then it'll be back. Oh, there's another. So that was a Space Invader. Hopefully I showed it on the video. Really hard to get. Little guy that I missed a million times. But then you got this bottle over here. 95. Yeah, I definitely have that one. All right. Index cards. Said my goodbyes. Like all the baristas are changing over at the Peloton here soon. Not all, but feels like it. It's a sad time. I'm gonna go ahead and talk to you about index cards. I don't know where they are though, is the problem. Couldn't find these this morning, so I left them here. But I'll tell you what I'm planning. But that was really loud. I'll tell you what I'm planning with these, how I'm gonna use them, and yeah. I'm gonna go to the restroom first, so let's do that first. All better. All right, index cards. Now the idea behind this may not be so foreign to anybody, I'm not really sure. I'd known about this method for years, but I was introduced to it more in depth through, was it Sid Meier's Save the Cat? Again, it's come up in other books that I've been reading recently, but the idea is basically what you do. If you're writing a screenplay, you'd have roughly 40 scenes that you would be writing out, and each of these index cards would represent a scene. There's lines on this side. The goal is not just to organize your story by scene, that is part of it, but it's to keep it as simple as possible so that you can reorganize it physically, which is helpful, but also so you can see your highs, your lows, and a lot of other notes. But of course, then when you're able to actually put everything out and have your first, second, third act, you can break it down in rows of 10. It helps you to physically actually see the structure of the story overall, where you can swap things, where you're lacking, where it's growing, where it's too much, where it's too little. And it's one of the things I really want to do for the overarching story of my world as well, to take all of these cards, basically putting like what happens specifically in this one book, what's the one thing that happens, boom, and build up everything to the major climactic scene that I have in mind for my world. It's a big thing I want to do with the index cards, but on a micro scale, I just want to dig in and make couriers work. Like just make this one story work with this method to start. Basically what I want to do is on each of these I want to write what happens in the scene in just like one sentence. And then to kind of denote a couple things. Who wants what going into the scene and who gets what coming out of it? Does it enter on a positive note and end on a negative note, or vice versa? Does it enter on a negative note and end on a positive note? And if there's no notable change over the course of this scene, then get rid of it or merge it into something else, make something happen. So it's a good way of being mindful as you prepare to write your book. I generally am the type of person who sits down and just writes. I just sit down and write a book. So every book that I've ever written, I've just kind of sat and started writing. I had an idea where I wanted to go. I had some notes, I'd thought it through. I'd been, imagining it for a while, but I just sat and let the whole thing kind of come together as I wrote. This is an experiment in trying to do a lot of the legwork up front. Think through the story problems, get to know the characters, get to know the plot, get to know everything, and just kind of revise and rework it in note form instead of in full book form because it's a lot of work up front to sit down and really try to do the mental lifting of like who's going where, what's happening, all of that before you even sit down to write. And honestly, I think it'd be kind of, I'm tempted just to sit down and start writing because it's just what I'm used to, and also just doesn't, this is not easy, like sitting down to do this. And then once you've done this, it's not that you're married to whatever it is that you created on the cards, but it's that it's a guide. And then when you finally write your first draft, you can kind of see what works, what doesn't, go back, revise this stuff, kind of let that bleed into the story that you have going as well. But it saves you having to rewrite entire passages or delete thousands of words at a time, like delete entire chapters. Instead of deleting entire chapters, you can just throw away one index card and then swap it out with something else. So the idea is to get it as organized as possible, to make sure that your scenes are actually scenes, like that change occurs in each and every scene, that you have conflict in each and every scene, that you know who wants what the conflict is, that you can get it that much more dialed in. And I've been writing a lot of notes on my computer, mostly for the Courier's sequel, so the second book in that trilogy. And I'm just taking it as an opportunity to really make it, like really sit down and work and try this method out. Because it's one of those things that, as far as I understand it, like most serious screenwriters really do this. And there are a lot of novelists that do it too. And I've never been much of an outliner before, but I think for me personally, that's just because I don't want to call myself lazy, but it's just easier not to in a lot of ways for me. So now I'm gonna try and take the less easy route and see what happens. I think it'll be good. The more that I understand storytelling, structure, all the elements that go into making a good story, the better I can doctor my own stories and figure out what's working, what's not working, what would make it better, why are parts of it just worthless. And instead of having to rely on an intuitive sense of what makes a good story, I'm starting to learn and label like the actual elements of the story and figuring it out through the language of my forebears, like the people that have already figured all this stuff out, that understand that story is not as great of a mystery. There's some mystery to it. There are definitely mysterious elements to it, but there's a lot that can be known as well. And so I'm trying to get rid of as much mystery as I can and really understand it as I go. It's not to say that you make it formulaic or you follow somebody else's like outline. It's just the more you know about your craft, the better you can master it, and the better you can make the things that you make. That's the theory, at least. So that's what's going on with the index cards on today's Write Early Wednesday. I don't know how insightful that was. If you have any questions, feel free to ask below. This is not a method, like I said, that I've ever used before, so I'm looking forward to giving it a try and seeing what happens. And then, of course, if it doesn't work, then I will be thoroughly disappointed. Well, not that disappointed, I mean, but if nothing else, the nice thing is that sitting down and thinking through all this stuff ahead of time really reveals a lot of problems. Like, I've already found a good chunk in the middle with Finn's storyline in particular, if you've read the first one. That's like, okay, changes need to happen. Like, this is not as good as it could be. So it's really helping to illuminate that I would have had a massive gap in the middle that if I was just writing, I might have written myself into and then had to go back and rewrite a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning, which I think I'm gonna have to do, which means I can just throw away a bunch of cards and then move on from there. So yeah, it's good. I'm getting back on the writing game. I really want to be spending more time writing. I also want to go for a run. It's hot outside, but not so hot that I couldn't go for a run. So I'm gonna do that this evening and just try to chill one more evening, and then we'll get back to hitting it hard here very soon. I am feeling a little bit better today. It's sad to see Rachel go. Maria's gonna be leaving soon too, which will also be tragic. And then Maddie, like, oh, my goodness, all the baristas. But, sorry, this is the tripod that's been struggling. But I think that, like, yeah, this, we're just gonna, I don't know, one more week, right? One more week of, yeah, I don't know. I just need a little bit more time to chill, and then I'll be back on my game here shortly. Alex, it was nice to meet you on the Metro today. Alex is serving as my impetus to get on top of doing a meetup. So let's do a meetup this weekend. I'm sure I'll be ready. I've not been very sociable. I've been a little bit overwhelmed by social environments the last couple of days, but hopefully by the end of the week, I'll be ready to sit down and have a beer. So I will tell you where it's gonna be today or tomorrow. I'll announce it on Twitter if nothing else. If you haven't followed me on Twitter yet, go ahead and do that. And if you're in Paris this weekend, I know Shaylee also is leaving here soon too. There are a lot of people leaving, so let's try to do it like Friday or Saturday. Should be good. We'll just get a drink and we'll go from there. I'll look at my calendar and see what works, but I'll definitely announce that here soon too. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. I will link to another, on this side, another Write Early Wednesday that might be helpful for you. And I will see you again bright and early tomorrow morning for a little bit more of a traditional, my style vlog, hopefully. Oh man, also that smoothie, I had a smoothie and some like ridiculous popcorn. It's very tasty, not substantial enough. I need more food. I might go do that first.